Hey you, welcome back to another video, and today I wanted to continue reading from my childhood certain books that I've rebought and that I have around the house. This time we're reading Puddle Lane, Mr. Puffle and the Gruffle. So if you like this sort of content and you want to see more, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, as well as that cheeky notification bell to be notified when more videos drop, and let's jump into it. Puddle Lane, Mr. Puffle and the Gruffle. The Gruffle was in the garden of the magician's house at the end of Puddle Lane. He was eating coal. The Gruffle liked coal to eat, and the magician often left a little pile of coal outside his front door. Suddenly, the sun went in behind a black cloud, and it began to rain. The Gruffle hated rain. It hissed in his ears when he puffed out fire. "I'm going home," he growled. The Gruffle lived in a ruined tower just outside Candletown. He visited the magician's garden because the magician put out coal for the Gruffle to eat. As he opened the gate into Puddle Lane, there was a great burst of rain. The Gruffle banged the gate behind him and sent a shower of water over his head. It made him very angry indeed. "I don't care who sees me," he growled to himself. "I'm not going to vanish. I'll teach everybody in Puddle Lane to keep out of my way." Mr. Gotobed heard the gates bang. He looked out of his window and saw the Gruffle. He put his hand in front of his eyes. He didn't believe what he saw. "I'm having a dream," he said to himself. "I'm having a nightmare," as he went straight upstairs to bed. Harry was looking out of the window, watching the rain falling. He saw the Gruffle coming down Puddle Lane. "Geeta," he called, "come and look. The Gruffle's in Puddle Lane." Geeta ran to the window, and they both stayed there, watching as the Gruffle came slowly along. As they watched, the rain stopped, and suddenly, as it had begun, the sun came out from behind the black cloud, but that didn't make the Gruffle any happier. He was very wet, and he wanted to get home. Just at that moment, Mr. Puffle came through the archway at the end of Puddle Lane. Mr. Puffle had been out that morning to the market in the market square. He had bought a sack of potatoes, and he was carrying it home, slung over his shoulder. The Gruffle saw Mr. Puffle and vanished. Mr. Puffle had almost reached the door of his house when the Gruffle decided to appear. The Gruffle was feeling so cross that he wanted to frighten someone. He wanted the lane to himself, too. He suddenly appeared, puffing out fire and smoke, right in front of Mr. Puffle. Mr. Puffle was so startled that for a moment he stood quite still. He stared at the Gruffle, and the Gruffle roared. He sent a great puff of smoke right into Mr. Puffle's face. Mr. Puffle swung the sack of potatoes over his shoulder and hit the Gruffle right on top of his head. The Gruffle sat down in the lane with a crash and a roar. Mr. Puffle dropped the sack and ran towards his front door. The Gruffle struggled to his feet and roared after him. A great flame of fire came from his mouth. As quick as a flash, Harry picked up one of the toy mice which was standing on the windowsill. He opened the window and threw the mouse down into Puddle Lane. It landed at the Gruffle's feet. The Gruffle roared again, but this time he roared with fright. He was very frightened of mice. There was a great puff of fire and smoke, and the Gruffle roared and vanished. Mr. Puffle pushed open his front door and staggered inside. He banged the door shut behind him. He was so overcome that he stumbled upstairs and went to bed. Harry and Geeta ran downstairs and out into Puddle Lane. Harry picked up the toy mouse and Geeta looked at it. "Is it all right?" she asked. "Grandmother gave me 2 mice as a Christmas present, and I didn't want anything to happen to either of them." "The mouse isn't damaged at all," said Harry. He handed it to Geeta, and she put it in her pocket. "Let's pick up the potatoes for Mr. Puffle," she said. The potatoes were scattered all over the lane. Harry and Geeta didn't notice a little chestnut-coloured mouse who was hiding in a broken flower pot outside Mr. Puffle's house. But Chestnut Mouse had seen everything that had happened. As soon as Harry and Geeta went inside, he ran off to his home under the hollow tree in the magician's garden. He told all the other mice what he had seen. In an old ruined castle on the hill outside Candletown, the Gruffle clambered down some steps and into the dungeon where he lived. He had made himself a bed there among some stones, and he made a pile of sticks and a pile of coal. He was too upset to eat any coal, but he lit a fire to dry himself. Then he settled down in his bed, rumbling and grumbling to himself until at least he fell asleep. And that is the end of this story. But Harry and Gita told their friends Sarah and Davy what had happened. Sarah had a magic music box that the magician had given her, and the next time the music box played, it sang a new song. And there we go. With that is my reading of Puddle Lane, Mr. Puffle and the Gruffle. Now I'm going through a lot of books that I think would be really cool just to read and just turn into little audiobooks. So if you like this sort of content and you want to hear more, then hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, as well as a cheeky notification bell to be notified when more videos drop. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next video.
チャンネルをサポートしてくれてありがとう。チャンネル登録、高評価お願い。以下のリンクから商品を入手することができるよ。